What is going on, Neon Nation? Welcome back to the Neon Arcade for some more Cyberpunk 2077 lore. Today we're diving into the corporate war history, including the first, second, third, and fourth corporate wars, the corporations involved, and how they've impacted the Cyberpunk world and Night City. This is from Artal Sorian's Stormfront Cyberpunk sourcebook. The first corporate war, which lasted from August 2004 to February 2006, began quite simply. Eurobusiness Machines was attempting to buy out struggling corporation Transworld Airlines. Negotiations began to sour after an unfriendly interaction with Transworld CEO. Orbital Air, who had interest in Transworld, saw this as an opportunity to jump in to obtain TWA's air traffic facilities for their own uses. Orbital Air blocked EBM's buyout attempt with sly tactics, and thus the first corporate war had its foundation. Orbital Air sent a negotiations team to try to sweeten the pot for Transworld to sell to OA instead of EBM. EBM dispatched terrorists to kidnap this team en route, but the terrorists compromised their identity, embarrassing and exposing EBM. In a speedy response, Orbital Air recruited ZetaTech as an ally who unleashed a massive wave of net attacks against EBM, and although they were initially crippling, they were quickly halted, forcing ZetaTech out of the war. EBM then started to strike Orbital Air and Transworld facilities, to which OA asserted their low Earth orbital dominance as a blockade. They struck back with a wave of terrorism of their own, to which EBM responded with an army of corporate solos and proxy Third World troops. This was a time period where both companies changed allies frequently, and hundreds of millions of Eurodollars were invested into the conflict. The two most significant battles during this conflict were when OA commandos captured a central EBM space station, as well as when they sieged and attacked EBM's CEO in his compound in Bavaria, capturing him and forcing EBM to surrender. The ripple effect of the first corporate war was vast and set the standard that corporations can obtain favorable deals and assets by using brute force and military scale tactics. The second corporate war is typically known as the most globally devastating and took place between April of 2008 and August of 2010 between oil giants Petrochem and SovOil. This conflict started when a merger deal fell through and a drilling accident at a Petrochem platform accelerated the confrontation to a fully blown war. Each corporation crippled one another's oil facilities in a few weeks, although SovOil experienced a greater bout of initial success. Petrochem expended millions of Eurodollars to fight back and regain the upper hand. This peaked when Petrochem captured and assassinated the SovOil founder and CEO Anatoly Novikovo. This was short-lived, and SovOil easily fended off Petrochem's follow-up attack in October of 2009, reducing Petrochem's forces in the Pacific to impotency. Although not formally acknowledged, with this final blow, the second corporate war was effectively over. The world was shocked that the second corporate war was even more violent and on a grander scale than the first. Both of these corporations defied national governments and the world, and these two duked it out under their own conditions and circumstances. Because of raids on mainly oil refineries, power plants, and drilling facilities, pollution was incredibly bad in the southern Pacific Rim, and the South China Sea became a lifeless chemical stew. National economies were devastated, and although SovOil paid fines and reparations, it was already too late. The third corporate war lasted from February 2016 to November 2016 and was fought almost entirely on the net. Hostilities began when financial examiners uncovered a confidence scheme being designed by investment counselors at Merrill Asukaga Finch against private investors using the Rothstein Fund, a subsidiary of the Bank of New York, as leverage. This enraged the Rothstein Fund, and they turned everything over to the district attorney's office for an investigation. They also hired local netrunners to begin infiltrating MANF's data fortresses in search of the truth. MANF fired back, increasing their security and launching their own netrunners against the Rothstein Fund, attempting to also destroy their computer systems. NetWatch had to step in and responded by limiting net access and made sweeps which resulted in arrests as well as flatlines. With the net being heavily watched, this is where the conflict moved to the streets. Both corporations started hiring mercenaries, and during a 12-hour period, battles were fought in low Earth orbit and Earth to destroy the opponent's net communications gear and infrastructure. Millions of dollars of destruction occurred, and there was considerable loss of life. The next 6 months were benign net raids, which yielded no favorites. When it was over, the Rothstein Fund ceased to exist, and MANF got stuck with the bill for the damage done in LEO and on Earth. By this time, corporate conflict was less shocking, although the method in which the war was fought was relatively new. The net seemed like a likely place for future conflicts to be held, although physical force was still just as important. The fourth corporate war took place between 2021 and 2025 and began in a similar way to some of the prior corporate wars, with rival megacorporations butting heads over a financial objective. In early 2021, IHAG, a megacorp specializing in underwater shipping and tech, went bankrupt. Two rival Aquacorps, CINO and OTEC, entered the picture to pick up the pieces, and both were vying for a takeover of IHAG's remaining resources. As the bad blood grew, an all-out war was the only natural next step. After years of fighting, however, neither of the Aquacorps were able to deliver the final blow to one another, and thus both of them hired external help in larger megacorps to provide resources, equipment, and military gear to aid them in battle. OTEC hired Militech, an armaments and security company based in the US, and CINO hired Arasaka, a security megacorp based out of Japan. As they are both two of the largest paramilitary corporations in the world with thousands of troops, Arasaka and Militech had been rivals before these contracts with the Aquacorps and were ready for any excuse to be at each other's throats. Both Militech and Arasaka are incredibly big megacorporations with an equally incredible amount of sophisticated technology, so much that if they decided to wage war, no entity on planet Earth would be able to stop them. Small pools of conflict effectively turned into larger scale battles that took over entire cities and states such as Tokyo, Yokohama, Washington, Chicago, and Night City. By mid-2022, battles involving aircrafts, AVs, tanks, power armor, and thousands of troops was the norm. Cyber attacks disrupted banking, international trade, and media. Orbital space narrowly escaped becoming a battlefield as the space-dwelling High Riders began hitting both sides with suborbital artillery strikes capable of decimating small cities. The Third World War was essentially in effect until the Night City Holocaust. On August 20th, 2023, a strike team led by elite solo Morgan Blackhand and rocker boy Johnny Silverhand detonated a pocket nuke in the Arasaka Towers complex in Night City, reducing the building to rubble and wiping out thousands of people. Silverhand was killed at the hands of cyborg solo Atom Smasher. This was the last straw that broke the camel's back, and within hours, US President Elizabeth Kress nationalized Militech and banished Arasaka forces and threatened to strike Arasaka's Tokyo headquarters if they did not comply. The aftermath was known as the Time of the Red. To learn about the Time of the Red and to continue the story, check out the video in the pinned comment and in the top right of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and for more Cyberpunk lore, join Neon Nation by subscribing to the Neon Arcade.